Okay, and we are live. If you are joining us, please pop a comment in so we can see who's all here. At any point in time during this conversation, if you have any questions about anything, just drop them in the comments and we will address them as we see them. And we'll give it just another minute or two for people to join us. And just like Wizard of Oz, don't mind the people in the background. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. If anyone joins us late, you can always rewind to watch it from the beginning to catch anything you might have missed. So I will go ahead and start by introducing myself. I am Brian Palmer. I am Executive Director for Ethereal Just Arts Council. I am also the producer for our production of The Importance of Being Earnest. And with us tonight is the director of the show, Mr. Matthew Barr. Matthew, if you will take a moment to introduce yourself and your background, your experience to those who are watching.
Hi, my name is Matthew Barr. I'm directing The Importance of Being Earnest. I have been involved with the theater my entire life. I saw my first play in 1999 at Columbus Children's Theater. It was Treasure Island, and I started taking classes immediately after that. Auditioned for my first play when I was 10 and have done theater the rest of my life since. I read The Importance of Being Earnest for the first time in high school, and it immediately became one of my favorite plays of all time. I have actually directed it before. I directed it in 2017. So this is the second time around. I've mostly directed children's theater as well. So I have really been leaning into the backstage side of theater. I also write. There's a workshop production of an original play of mine coming up soon. So that is my main background, directing, acting, writing. So I'm happy to be back, and I'm happy to be back with Ethereal Jest.
Fantastic. So who are the members of your team? Who are you working with, and what areas are they focusing in?
So Jamie Levitt is going to be our props designer. There's going to be a lot of really cool props in this show. Ivory Mazur is going to be the set designer. Amy Sparks will be designing costumes, and Veronica here is the board representative for the show. Is there anybody I'm leaving out?
I don't think so.
I think I've gotten everybody.
Fantastic. So a lot of the team are either staff or regulars who have worked with us in the past. So it'll be really fun getting to do another show with the lovely group of people that we've developed. So what is the play about? What is The Importance of Being Earnest? What's the story?
It begins with two men, Algernon and Jack, and over the course of the play, they create these elaborate deceptions about who they are to avoid their social obligations and just to add a little bit more spark and enjoyment to their own lives. And they assume these identities to fall in love. They both take on the name Ernest, and they're trying to pursue these women. And the whole play is about authenticity and morality and views on marriage. So it's about these two guys who are not being honest and learn what happens when you create these false perceptions of yourself. And it's just a lot of fun in between. So it's exploring all this drama between these characters through comedy.
Okay. So when was the show originally produced? When did the show, like the setting, when does it take place?
It is originally set in Victorian London. Our production is going to be in the 50s, though. So a little bit later than it was originally written, but the themes are still relevant. it looks at morality and upper class society, and you can explore those themes at any point. So we're going to be exploring it in a post-war setting. I imagine it specifically 1952, and we're going to look at, because in London, the cities, there's still a lot of bomb sites and there's still heavy food rationing. So people are really struggling, and you have these characters with all these trivial issues. The full title of the play is The Importance of Being Earnest, a trivial comedy for serious people. So these characters are going through these situations. For example, at the beginning, Algernon is telling Jack not to eat these sandwiches because the cucumbers have been ordered specifically for Lady Bracknell. But then he eats them all and then has Lane form this lie, his servant form this lie about why the store didn't have any. And in 1952, people are still struggling to find food. So it's this issue that he's not taking lightly. It just shows he's a little bit more out of touch. And so you can still explore these really interesting ideas, even if you are not setting it in the Victorian society that it was originally written for. So we're looking at a lot of similar themes in a different time, and that's really interesting to me.
So what is the overall concept for this production of this play?
So we're setting it in the 50s. Sorry, hang on. Sorry. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So in addition to moving the play from the late Victorian to the early 1950s, what other kind of concept is there for the show? I know that we've talked a little bit about adding more of like a physical comedy to it. And then I know that we've also talked about the possibility of kind of leaning into the comedies of the era.
Yes. So think I Love Lucy or The Dick Van Dyke Show, those classic sitcoms where a character walks in and the audience starts laughing and cheering and applauding. During set changes, characters and actors getting makeup touch-ups, and producers interacting with the audience, seeing what they like, what they don't like. So bringing the audience into the setting, into the era during a time when the show is taking place, and you have these classic types of shows that follow similar patterns and themes. So we're going to add these different elements on top of the script without adding or changing the dialogue or adding any producers or makeup people. We're just going to have it surrounding the play and creating a frame as if you're entering into a show and watching it live.
So what would you say is the theme of the show, or what is the ultimate message? What should audiences walk away with when they see this show? So
everybody today, people today, a lot of people try to be different in order to fit in. A lot of people try to find the meaning of love, and people face issues with money. A lot of the things that this play is talking about, even in a silly way, people face. So being able to comment on these things in such a funny way, and at times ridiculous throughout the show, it's also stylized and it's creative, and we're trying to bring something new to it. So I think they'll really enjoy it, while also seeing these elevated, more satirical issues and thoughts that maybe they still relate to. And so it's going to be familiar because many people know the importance of being earnest, but also hopefully they leave feeling like they saw something fresh and something they haven't seen before.
Very good. So now, having talked about the show and the concept for the show, for those who are interested in being a part of the show, let's talk a little bit about auditions. And in addition to that, we've actually had a couple questions from viewers. So Aaron is asking if what age groups we're looking for. Are there any roles potentially for teens, or what kind of age groups are you looking for the characters?
So most of the characters are adults. Jack, Algernon, Gwendolyn, Cecily, they range from early 20s to 30s. There's a maid and a housekeeper, butler. I'm open to any type of casting on that, male, female, any gender. I'm open to anything. Age, I'm thinking probably 20, for the 20s to any age, really. So if you're about 20, I think probably that's a good range. Younger than that, always audition. You never know. Always audition.
And with theater, when we talk age ranges, it's not so much what your actual birth age
Absolutely.
is, it's what ages can you play.
Right.
Because there are some 16, 17-year-olds who could play 20, 22, and there are some 22, 23-year-olds who could play 12.
I am
So
in a
it's
show
more about-
right now playing a character that is older than I am. So you just audition.
Yeah. So and I agree with Matthew, that's one of my suggestion points for most people as well, is that you never know. So if you're interested in a part, go ahead and audition. The worst that can happen is that you don't get cast. The best that can happen is that maybe you can make the director see the character in a different way than what they had previously. And they might be interested in casting you in something that even you don't know, or aren't even expecting to be cast in. So Lynn has asked if we'll be using English accents, because the show does take place in London and in the English countryside.
Yes. In the show, yes, we will be using English accents. At auditions, if you don't feel comfortable with an accent, don't let it hold you up. I'm not worried about hearing it at an audition. I'm going to ask for it at parts of callbacks, and we will be using them in the show. Yes.
Fantastic. So still, we haven't discussed details of auditions yet, which leads us into the next question. Raina has asked, what do they need to prepare for auditions? So let's take a minute to talk about, like, what are the requirements for auditions? When do they take place? What will the experience be like for those who are interested in auditioning?
Okay. Auditions are going to be Saturday, September 7th from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock. Sunday, September 8th from 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock. And then callbacks are going to be Monday, September 9th from 6:30 to 9. At auditions, we'll do 1 to 2 minute monologues. You can prepare a short monologue, and we're also going to do a little bit of improv. You can sign up. It's half-hour blocks, right, Brian?
I think they're 15-minute blocks.
15-minute blocks, groups of 5. So you'll be in a small group. You will each do your monologues, and then we'll do some improv. And for callbacks, we will do cold reads from the script. Completely honestly, I get really nervous at callbacks. So I like to give actors time to read the scene together, go over the scene, and then come in on audition. So what I'll do is I'll pair you up in groups. You will go out to the hall, read your scene, talk about anything you want to talk about, and then come in and present it. We will also have a movement element. There's going to be a lot of parts of this play that have a lot of physical comedy that's really stylized, to the point that it will be planned out and choreographed. So we're not gonna do like a dance call or anything like a musical would have, but there will be a little bit of teaching movement and then moving around. So auditions will be monologues and improv. Callbacks will be cold reads and movement-based exercises.
Fantastic. And then when it comes to casting decisions, the standard process that we go through here at Ethereal Jest is that we will notify the entire, like everyone who has auditioned will receive an email notification by 8 a.m. on Wednesday morning. Now, some people may get notifications before that because we really don't want to have to send any notifications out until we've confirmed with everyone who is being cast. So some people might get some starting on Tuesday, but everyone will be notified by 8 a.m. Wednesday morning. And then we will notify the public by 8 a.m. that Friday morning. Once the post goes up on Facebook at 8 a.m. on Friday, then everyone is more than welcome to share the information, to share the news, and celebrate from that. We do want to make sure that Matthew and the rest of his casting committee have ample time to effectively consider all casting options and make sure that we also give those people who have auditioned and are offered roles the time to consider to make sure that they do want to accept the roles before we announce anything. So we do try to take most of that week to process through and make sure everyone has the right time to ensure that they're making the best decisions for themselves. So once auditions are over, once casting offers have gone out and the company has been announced to the public, when will rehearsals be and what will the rehearsal process look like, both logistically, like on the calendar, as well as in the room?
Sure. Rehearsals are going to start with a read-through on the 16th, Monday. For the first 2 weeks, possibly 3, depending on where we are, they're going to run from 6:30 to 8:30, and then 6:30 to 9:30 every week after that until tech. Move into the theater, and correct me if I'm wrong, move into Mad Lab is going to be Sunday, November 10th. Not sure on the exact time yet. And then tech is going to begin on that Monday. So the first 2 weeks will be 2-hour rehearsals, and then we'll move into 3 hours. We will do a read-through, and then we'll move into some scene work and character work and blocking, and then we'll do brush-ups, and then run, and obviously rehearsal schedules depend on conflicts and cast availability and things like that. But we're going to follow a sequence of blocking, scene work, and then we're going to add a little bit of history into the first couple rehearsals too. So after the read through, we're going to do some history on the 50s and London and things like that, because there is a lot of background that goes into this. The set and the props are just as much of a character in this show as the actors. So we're going to take some time and really dig into the context. That's also important to mention. So I'm also becoming a history teacher as well as a director.
And with this show, there's also a number of additional events that will be going on throughout the rehearsal process. We have started doing what we call our promo photo shoot. So we will pick a Saturday or Sunday for the entire cast to get together at a certain location with a photographer, and we just take some photos. It's a nice bonding event to get to know each other, as well as to give the marketing committee some material to use to start promoting the show. We are also planning to do a fundraiser along with the show. Its current working title is the Wild Cocktail Party, where we plan to do a 1950s cocktail party where the drinks and the appetizers are 1950s in style, as well as encouraging everyone who attends to dress up in 1950s garb as well. Play some 1950s dinner or cocktail party games and just really immerse ourselves into the event. With that event, the actors who play Jack and Cecily, Gwendolyn, Lady Bracknell, and Algernon will attend in character. And Algernon and Lady Bracknell and Gwendolyn will be hosting the party that Jack and Cecily and everyone else are attending. So it should be a really fun, kind of immersive event. Then we're also, with the fact that this is a public domain piece that we are adapting into a new format, we do plan to host a talk back after the show is over to get some feedback from audiences on what they liked of our take, what they didn't like from our take, a chance to talk to the actors about their process and experiences, and really get a chance to have a healthy, strong conversation between our production teams and our audiences. Because it always helps us to be able to grow and do better work when we can get direct feedback from the people who are attending and experiencing the things that we're building and working on. So are there any other show-related things that we haven't talked about that you think would be a good idea to bring up? Okay, so Charlene has just asked if we have any physical comedy planned for Lady Bracknell.
Not so much Lady Bracknell. It's mostly Jack and Algernon. And there will be a little bit between Algernon and Cecily in a scene. It's mostly Jack and Algernon and Cecily.
Now, would you describe this show as campy? Or what do you think is a better word or couple words used to describe the overall kind of genre?
I keep saying stylized, but I realize that sounds pretty broad. Campy sounds close. I wouldn't say campy.
Okay.
Let's go with...
What about maybe melodrama?
Yes.
Yeah. So when you're looking at, when people are preparing for auditions, I know that we haven't specified any specific kind of monologue. Like someone could do Shakespeare, they could do comedy, they could do drama, whatever kind of monologue they want to do. But when you're looking at moving into rehearsals, what style of acting are you expecting to do? Are you wanting people to do more of like a modern day style where it's naturalistic and everyone's acting like they would in real life? Are you wanting something that's more like akin to the way that they acted in movies and TV shows in the 1950s? Is there something like in between or something different or new?
If you were thinking about style, think about the sitcoms that you would watch in the 50s. Think about what you would see on I Love Lucy or the Dick Van Dyke Show. Those are the two that I keep going back to, but really any of those types. I think in this show especially, a lot of the characters are, in their mind, the situations they are in are dramatic. So a lot of the comedy in this show is pushed through drama. So while you are looking for the comedies and the stylization of that time, you can also lean into more of the drama elements as well. So I think there's a lot of options when selecting a monologue. I know that might sound somewhat vague, but I think there is a lot you can do. And I am more looking forward to seeing what people come up with. But if you are looking for style, think more of that 1950s sitcom style.
And I also want to point out that when we say monologue, I know that can be kind of intimidating for people, especially anyone who's never auditioned with a monologue before. But it doesn't have to be whatever you're imagining. So in the past, we've had someone who has auditioned by taking the lyrics to a song and then just acting out the words instead of singing them. We've had people come in and they've memorized chapters in a book. So there's lots of different ways. Again, the point of a memorized monologue is to demonstrate what you can do when you have time to prepare.
Yes.
So it's less about exactly what it is that you're preparing. It's that you took the time to prepare something. So don't stress too much about, oh, am I getting the right thing, the right piece? In the end, and Matthew, correct me if I'm wrong, but when I'm sitting behind a casting table, I just want to be entertained.
You are not wrong.
That is, especially if we're watching 20, 30, maybe 40 auditions over the course of the weekend, we want to be entertained. We want to have fun. And we're hoping that every single person that enters that room is going to be able to do that. We want to have fun. We want you to have fun. We want you to succeed.
One thing, let me just read you the note I typed about callbacks because it goes with what you just said. Callbacks are going to be 2.5 hours of us just playing around. So please try to forget that you are auditioning and just think of it as a bunch of theater kids hanging out. That being said, if you do not get a callback, it does not mean that you are not being considered for a part.
And it's also, callbacks are there as a tentative thing.
Yes.
If after we're done with Saturday and Sunday's auditions, when we're talking, if Matthew feels like there's a couple people he can't decide between, that's what the callbacks are for.
Sure.
Is to bring in those people to check chemistry, to check a few things that we weren't able to clear through auditions. But there's a lot of shows that we don't even hold callbacks for. It's just case by case. We like to have it on the calendar just in case we need it. But it is not a guarantee that we'll have it. Anyone who does get invited to callbacks will get an email Sunday evening. So that way you have time to make arrangements to be there. If you do not get an invite to callbacks, like Matthew just said, that does not mean you're not being considered for a part. It just means that we've seen everything we need to from you, and we're able to move forward. Raina does have another question. How do you envision character relationships and the character dynamics?
How do you envision character relationships and the character dynamics? So you have Jack and Algernon, who are making up these identities, and Cecily and Gwendolyn, who want to marry a man named Ernest. So all of these characters are having these ideas about what it is that is best and what they want and what is right. And through the play, the final line is Jack saying, talking about the importance of being earnest. So it's about authenticity. So the dynamic between all of the characters is that the young characters are not being authentic with each other. And you have Lady Bracknell, who has all these separate ideas about society. So it's just a lot of exploration through authenticity and how do I want to explain this? That is a great question. You have stumped me.
I think that what you're saying is correct. It's the difference between this show and like a traditional modern comedy is that each of the characters have their own unique perspective on the world and view of the world, and they really are kind of dug into wanting things to be that way. There's a part of the show where Cecily and Algernon, who she believes is Ernest as well, where he's talking to her and saying, well, surely you could love a man who wasn't named Ernest. She's like, no, I've always wanted to be married to a man named Ernest, so he must be named Ernest. And so it's, again, it's a farce, and it's a social commentary on the various rules that we have instituted in our society that don't necessarily make sense, and they don't necessarily support what might be best for us or what we really want. But we believe that that's the way things should be, so that's the way we live our lives. And so this show is about that the absurdity of being stuck in traditions and our mores, and how sometimes we could have a happier life, we could have a more fulfilling life and be happier with each other if we were just honest and true to who we are and less focused on the way everyone expects us to be. And honestly, I don't even know if I answered the question either. Raina, that is a fantastic question, and I think definitely one suitable for like a full-on essay. So I think also looking at that again, all of the characters, even though there is some mistaken identities, there's a little bit of duplicity from Jack and Algernon. In the end, every character is trying to be authentic to themselves. And it's just how each of them being authentic kind of conflicts when they're living in the same space. You're muted, Matthew. No, it's showing you're muted. There you are.
I didn't do it. I didn't change anything.
I don't know. I might have accidentally hit a button, but it wouldn't let me unmute.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, yeah. So
Sorry.
what were you saying?
I was basically agreeing with you, supporting you. Yeah.
So Lynn has another question. Length of monologue. She said, it says 3 minutes on the website. So with the 3 minutes, it's up to 3 minutes. So it can be as short as a minute. It can be up to 3 minutes. We just want to make sure that people aren't doing like 5 to 10-minute monologues, because then that eats up a lot of the time. So
And
anything between like a minute to 3 minutes.
And I have found that usually, well, not usually, sometimes people will add a minute to what you say. So I usually say 1 to 2 minutes if it's up to 3 minutes, or if it is a 4-minute monologue, I'll say 2 to 3 minutes, because you just never know. Leave some room.
Yeah. And within each person's audition time slot, they're 15 minutes long. So that way there's time for an interview portion if we have questions over your resume. If you have questions over the rehearsal process or the production itself, that those can be addressed. And then that 15 minutes also serves as like a buffer between auditions to make sure that if one runs a little longer, we have that time factored in to be able to get everybody in as close to their assigned times as we can. Fantastic. So are there any other questions on anything that we talked about today, or even anything that we didn't mention? If you end up having a question after this video will stay live on Facebook through the end of auditions, so for a couple more weeks. And if you have any questions and watch this back later, you can still pop them in the comment section, and we will get back to you and address your questions as soon as we can. Okay. So if no other questions, thank you so much for joining us today, Matthew. This has been very exciting. I personally cannot wait for auditions for this show. It is going to be fun. Similar to what you said, this has been one of my favorite shows since I first read it in high school. So I am very excited to finally get to work on it, especially and to get to work on it with you. So again, thank you guys for joining us. Have a great rest of your Saturday, and we will talk to you guys soon.